Another movie.
Well, Turbulence is another movie. I don't know if I saw that. There's so many plane-based movies with generic titles, and tonight is no exception. We're talking about Flight Risk from Academy Award-winning director Mel Gibson, who brought us Braveheart and Hacksaw Ridge. Comes a January action thriller, it is at once the worst movie I've seen in a long time, and the best movie going experience I've had in probably a decade. And we're going to get into why that was tonight. But first of all, we need to introduce ourselves. Who are we? We are Earth's Mightiest Critics. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. And you might know that if I bothered to turn on.
I was going to say, where's our names?
We get no names. We get no names.
I don't know who I am.
Here. Well, yeah, I mean, we have to have our identification in order to get on the plane. See, that's how it works.
That's true.
So I'm Ian Simmons. You can see my name right down there. David Fowley of Keeping It Real, and Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of. Why isn't your name Mark the Movie Man Flight Check or something like that?
It's been a long day.
Of the spoiler room, yes, it has been. So we're here to talk about Flight Risk, starring Mark Wahlberg, Topher Grace, and Michelle Dockery, who I don't know that I've seen her in anything. She reminded me of kind of like the other Deschanel, Emily Deschanel, in some respects, but I didn't quite recognize her except as kind of a great value Clarice Starling. The movie, I think, tells you exactly what it's going to be in the opening scene, where Topher Grace is in this Alaskan woods motel room, popping popcorn in the microwave unsuccessfully. Was it ramen?
Yeah, it's ramen. It was ramen.
You were paying more closer attention to me. Well, okay, listen, in fairness, I had just gotten done having my world rocked by the Captain America 4DX trailer, so it took me a while to reorient myself. Maybe it was popcorn flavored ramen. I still win.
Sure.
But all right, so Topher Grace plays a guy who's he's about to turn state's evidence or something against a mobster, and so he's got to get flown from Alaska to Seattle in order to testify the next morning. There's a US Marshal who's escorting him, and an airline pilot played by Mark Wahlberg, who is, surprise, surprise, not all that he seems. Turns out he's a hitman working for the guy. I know I should put on the spoiler banner, although this is all in the trailer. He wants to kill the witness and get away with it, and he's got a bumpy ride on his hands. That's really the entire movie, and it's like every movie that sounds similar to it. There aren't really any surprises, I don't think, unless you see it the way David and I saw it in 4DX. Mark, you saw it in a regular format, so
I did.
Instead of getting into the nitty gritty, what's that?
What's your good confession?
Instead of getting into the nitty gritty, the subplots, the themes, the raison d'etre of this movie, one of the things I want to focus on tonight is Flight Risk worth a damn without all the bells and whistles, the special effects, the spritzing water, the wind machines, the rocking back and forth on a roller coaster platform, or is it built for that? And how do you judge this? Like, can you watch this movie at home and have anything close to the same kind of fun as watching it in that venue? But first, Mark, I want to get your high level reaction to Flight Risk.
I surprisingly had fun with it. Now, there's a difference between a good movie and having fun movie. We all know this, and that's what this is. I mean, I'm going to say it is and I said this in my review, it is the most ridiculous movie I've ever seen Mel Gibson direct. I actually, if you didn't tell me that Mel Gibson directed this, I wouldn't have had a clue that he directed this because of the premise. And I was worried the first 5 minutes when we get the CGI hotel shot from the outside and then CGI moose that were awful. I mean, okay, I get the moose, but the CGI hotel shot on the big screen, it's very obvious like it's AI created. I'm like, what are we in South Park or something? And then and then it opens up and then they try to drop the humor. And until Mark Wahlberg shows up, I was very worried about the film. I was like, But Wahlberg shows up and he's just he makes this a completely different film. And there's still some tension-filled moments. There's still some fun moments in here if you just kind of let yourself go and go, okay, this is what it is. Not as much fun with water spraying and I'm sure chairs shaking and such, because it is made for an experience like that with the shots and the action. But I mean, it's a fine thriller. I think you could go there, have fun. You get some, ridiculous, very ridiculous moments. Mark Wahlberg is pretty much a slasher in a plane, as far as the plot armor he has. But yeah, I mean, as long as you turn your brain off, you're gonna have fun with this. And I needed my brain off, so I think that's what helped appeal to me too, because I was just like, oh, this is what we're doing now. And then I just sat back and I let the film play out, and I'm like, yep, I knew this was going to go this way, but at the same time, it was fun. What I thought was interesting, well, we'll get into it, but I saw a post on Twitter from an actress who I think was supposed to be involved in this project, but did not. She backed out. So Ruby Rose was supposed to be I don't know if it is for sure. She didn't specify. She mention specifics, but in the tweet she had, she's like, I went against my team, though they encouraged me to go into a Mel Gibson film, and I'm so glad that I chose not to be in it.
Now, is she saying that because it's Mel Gibson, or because she saw the movie and then she's like, yeah, I dodged a bullet on that one, literally?
Either way, it's just that even if she was being considered, I'm like, wow, that'd be a different movie.
And it's weird because this is a Lionsgate film, and I know she's done her share of Lionsgate stuff. And I talked to her about a Lionsgate movie she made a few years ago. I think that would have put this movie over the top into best film of the decade territory if Ruby Rose had been the US Marshal. Personally, very interesting. David, what make you of Flight Risk? Let's talk about it as a movie first, if you can separate the two, the experience from the film.
I think I can. I'm glad it's out, so we don't have to continue to see the trailer.
Yes.
I knew going right away from the trailer that, like, I remember thinking to myself, I got to watch the crap out of this. And there was crap in it. Yeah, I mean, I knew that this was not going to be a good movie. And I understand the whole park your brain type thing, and watch it, have fun. Okay, sure. Sometimes I'm down with that. But if I want to park my brain, I'll take a nap.
Fair enough.
But still, we're still in kind of award season, and I like having a break like this from all the heavy stuff. So fine, I'm game for it. It's January when these, B movie action flicks, horror flicks are dropped. So we kind of expect this. But to me, this is the most January drops I've ever seen or recalling. And like, again, it's really hard to separate my experience from the movie because I couldn't imagine seeing this outside of 4DX, because I would be extremely bored, and the like, just the screenplay. I'm really surprised that the screenplay was like blacklisted, and the screenplay.
Wait, you mean it ended up on the blacklist?
No, it's been blacklisted when is a term in Hollywood when certain certain scripts are kind of like highlighted and put to the top.
Yeah, that's the blacklist.
Yeah.
Wait, there's a difference between being on the blacklist and being blacklisted.
Oh, okay. Did I say blacklisted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it should have been blacklisted, but it was on the blacklist.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we see the trailer, I mean, it's Mel Gibson directing this is like an afterthought when watching the trailer.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson directing this is also an afterthought after you watch the movie, because it's like there's nothing really discernible or recognizable. Like, oh, this is definitely a Mel Gibson movie. Okay, all right.
I mean, first of all, like the thing I commented to you on when we first talked about going to see it was the runtime. I was shocked to find out this is an hour and a half long. Mel Gibson tends to direct big, sweeping, often like historical epics that are like 2.5, 3 hours long. And I really respect him as a filmmaker. I love Braveheart. I really loved Hacksaw Ridge. And so that's sorry,
Apocalypto. Yeah,
I've not seen Apocalypto. That's something I got to fix that blind spot, because I've heard great things. But as far as watching this, when his name came up, I feel like it was at the end of the trailer. Like, wait a second, this is Mel Gibson. I was like, well, maybe there is something to that, because everyone dumps on January as the dumping ground for movies, but occasionally you'll get that bit of counter programming. Where it's like, oh, we're going to put out a really good movie secretly because it's a wasteland. So it gives us all the opportunity for people to be surprised, word of mouth, get all the money, and we have a low-key blockbuster. This was not the case, but I would feel like if every Cineplex across America had at least one 4DX auditorium, this thing would be Deadpool and Wolverine huge. Because the experience of it, I thought it was always cheesy. I never went to it because I'm like, okay, the chairs shake and you get spritzed with water, big deal. But as they say, nothing can prepare you for the experience of sitting in that chair. You're not even strapped in, which I think kind of adds to the danger when it's tilting forward. You're like, wait a second, am I going to slide out of this thing? But they do go, like every sound effect is attuned to a function in that chair. So when you're taking off on the little Cessna plane on the runway, you're getting that turbulence to side, the backward motion as you're lifting up. There's a scene where our Marshal takes control of the handle and she doesn't know how to fly a plane, so it starts going into a tailspin and flying down into the mountains, and you feel every bump. The audience, I love. We were all screaming and howling and laughing hysterically because we realized part of it, I think, was like, if this was a Marvel movie, it'd be fun, but because this is such a terrible, like, I can't believe I'm doing this while watching this movie, it just adds something to the experience.
I mean, as soon as you're on the runway, it's like the 4DX it's like 4 seats together, and then it's like you're in a simulator, right? So rickety plane and everything, and then but as soon as I knew we were in for a ride, as soon as that cheesy motel shot, like you were saying, Mark, we saw like fake snow come down from the ceiling. And then like at some point there was like fog coming in from the sides of the screen up top in front. I'm like, okay, it makes up for a really bad screenplay.
Well, it really does bring that 4D quality to it, because I know the scene you're talking about later in the film, probably at the midpoint. I don't remember why this happened, but our Marshal, I keep wanting to call her Michelle Dockery, but her character's name was Madeline.
Madeline.
Yeah, I know, but it's like Madeline.
Yeah.
Sounds like AI just said that. Madeline.
Madeline.
Yeah, but she opens up a door on the back of the plane and doesn't throw Mark Wahlberg out that door.
I know.
But when the door opens, the wind comes rushing in, and there's the clouds because they're way high up. So you start seeing this like mist kind of smoke effect almost on the screen. And then you notice out of the corner of your eye, like, wait a second, it just got really cold in here and there's wind blowing on me. And oh my God, is that smoke? And you realize, no, it's not just confined to the seats. The entire theater is rigged to have these immersive special effects. And it's the wildest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, the only experience I had for 4D theater was in the Dells, and it was some rundown 4D theater. So, like, you know, when you
That
hit
old
a
guy throwing water
when
on
you well, no, not necessarily that bad though. You did see where the hose was when it would spray water on you, and then the padding on the back of the chair was so worn out that so when the plunger tried to force you, you know, to go that, it was just like a little thunk. It was like a little spear hitting
Oh,
you in the
no.
back of the.
That would have been cool for like a slasher movie.
That would be.
I mean, I think the problem here is that, like, I don't mind being like dropped in on a plot and everything, but to me, the setup and everything, like, if you're gonna have like this disgraced US Marshal, and I think in this movie the US stands for utterly stupid. If you're gonna have her, you know, I don't know. I just feel like there should be more in the front end, a little bit more in the front end, and maybe that's why, you know, 20 minutes could have been added on to this. There should be more in the front end, establishing like logistics. Like, okay, so who's going to be our, you know, pilot? You know, they got to sign off. They got to and then, like, you know, go, because this is such a high security thing. They need to be. She needs to be checking off, like almost like OCD level, checking off all the, you know, ins and outs, dotting the I's.
No.
All right.
You're ruining it, man. I didn't even think about that because, of course, and again, this is from the trailer, even though we have the spoiler banner up. Topher Grace is handcuffed and sitting in the sort of the back of the plane, and there's a decent distance between him and Wahlberg and Madeline in the front, so it makes it somewhat believable when he's trying to communicate to them by yelling or like throwing a pen at her or something like that, like why they can't hear him. They're talking through their headphones and he doesn't really have one. But the whole gimmick is the real pilot's license is underneath the seat, and during some of this turbulence, it kind of jostles itself loose, and Topher Grace's character looks at it and is like, oh, that's same name, different face, so our pilot is not who he claims to be. But later on, I think it was when Madeline was radioing into her headquarters or whatever, her contact was like, yeah, the local authorities just found the real pilot like hacked to pieces in a hotel room or at his house or something like that, or his apartment. So I'm like, okay, so Wahlberg killed him there. But again, yeah, did he just drive out to the airstrip and jump on board this plane with a federal marshal and a witness? There was nobody to check his ID at the plane, or like, I don't know, 3 or 4 other points leading up to this. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, David, I agree. In case of a real movie, that would have been really helpful. But for this, you just get on the plane and you take off, no questions asked. It's, you know, it's pre 2001 good times here.
And there's that line that's like, oh, I've never gotten on a plane before the pilot. I'm like,
all right, we're gonna pull over because we got a bunch of comments and we're
I haven't seen this many comments in a while.
Seriously, it's a party here on Kicking the Seat. DN says, hopefully the resurrection CGI isn't bad. You know, I'm trying to think, because that's gonna be the sequel to Passion of the Christ, right? Yeah. Was there a lot of CGI in the? Oh, there was. A lot of the blood was like the splatters and that really bad effect with the hole in the hands at the end. So
I'm just looking forward in Resurrection when they have you know, Jesus come out, but then he's gonna be disappeared for most of the film, and we're gonna have someone else pose as Jesus till the very end, when then Jesus comes out with you know, and takes on Laurie Strode. Oh wait, sorry, wrong.
Not wrong. That Resurrection. Jesus is not going to say trick or treat, mother effer. Okay, but if he did, all right. Hacksaw Ridge, also DN says Hacksaw Ridge wasn't really a quote unquote Mel Gibson film either. I'm curious what you mean by that. I don't know.
It is a quote unquote Mel Gibson film.
I don't know that if you have some context there, I'd be curious to hear, because joining these cinema scholars for a bit. Thank you, Sajiwa. Katie, the blonde in front, was this Mark Wahlberg's best performance since Fear? Is that the movie where he was with Reese Witherspoon and at one point he goes, "Let me in the house"?
Yeah.
I never saw that movie, but I remember that from the trailer. Did this bunch of actors seem funky to you? Yes, they were a bunch of funky actors. All right.
There was definitely some funk there.
Well, I gotta say, sitting in those 40X chairs, I got some good vibrations. Okay, Sajiwa, thank you. 24% for critics at RT. But this goes back to my original statement. If every cinema in America had at least one 4DX auditorium, this thing would be 103%, 124% on RT. Yes, okay. Meanwhile, Hong Sang-soo movies are at 90 to 100%. Yes, I know, which, again, critics are crooked. What can I say?
Is it supposed to be okay.
I'd
Shots
rather
fired.
go through this movie again than that Bob Dylan flick. Good God, what a piece of shit that was.
Shots fired.
Fired. No. I'm not saying I disagree with you, DN, but I'm saying there is someone on this panel, I will not out them, who is a big fan. Oh no, he showed himself the door. No. David, come back. We love you.
Come back, David.
Wait, did he really get disconnected? Or did he turn off his camera? You turned off your camera to cry for a little bit, and now you're back. I got it.
Didn't you?
Hey, listen, Deanne.
That's okay, because Deanne's a complete unknown to me, so that's all right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice play.
Hey, shameless plug. I think DN stands for Dylan Non-Enthusiast. But okay, DN, go back and watch our live stream from, or no, it was a pre-recorded thing, I think, from a few weeks ago, where we talked about A Complete Unknown. So that was a fun conversation. The blonde in front says, "Since fear, not sing fear." Yes, I got it. Mistyping. I was gonna let it go, Katie. You're in good hands.
Yeah. Anyway,
the audience the flight risk? No.
No.
Especially if they see it in 4DX. There's no way you can watch this in that format and not, let's see. I'm not taking any more movie recommendations from Gio after all those Joel Haver's movies. Oh, okay. So again,
now we got to fight.
It's scrap time in here.
In the comments.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on a second. All right, Joel Haver movies are good. At least the 3 I recommended are good. Perhaps acquired taste.
Get your own podcast.
Time. Seriously, not Hollywood nonsense. Different art house 5. Okay, so all right. No more bloody noses. Everyone go to their corners. We're gonna resume talking about flight risk. But Sajio, you mentioned Hollywood nonsense. I think that's what we have here, but it's the best kind. Mark.
The thing is, I mean, we saw the trailer enough. We knew what we were getting into. So nothing really surprised me as far as the quality. I was hoping for it was a mixed bag for me, because I thought actually some of the tension-filled moments with the plane, while we've seen it before, were actually a bit tension-filled. The plane almost crashing and being chained, and even some of the fighting. I think, in all honesty, Michelle Dockery is at her best when her character isn't looking like a deer in headlights constantly, when she's actually like in action confronting Wahlberg, basically fighting or scuffling with him. I think she's actually some of her best there. Topher Grace could have been played by anybody. He does not need to be in this film. This film is like, oh, it's Topher Grace. It's like, first off, how many people are going to still recognize the name? And second of all, I'm like, this part really could have been played by anybody.
So he's playing a mob accountant. I would have loved for it to have been like somebody like Paul Giamatti or something.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why does he have to be a younger guy? Why can't he be like, middle-aged or older guy? And I don't know.
Paul Giamatti is not going to know how to embezzle money through the dark web. I'm sorry.
Come on,
never know. He could sell it. I mean, William
or Steve Buscemi or something.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi.
Again, we need to talk about people who are like not in their 60s. No respect to either of those actors, but I mean, for crying out loud.
Okay, fine, whatever.
And here's the thing. I think Topher Grace is perfect for this. He gets a lot of hate, and I don't quite understand why. He's never really like wowed me, but I've never thought he was bad in a movie. I think he's had the unfortunate position of being in some not that great movies, but here I think it was fine. And I really liked, again, spoilers, folks, he gets like almost fatally stabbed a couple of times. I don't know how he was still alive by the time they got him off that plane. But there's a bit where he's doing, yes, it's a cliched moment where it's like, you find my mom and you tell her that I'm sorry and all this other stuff. But I think he really sold it. I really like the bit where he's kind of looking, his face is like kind of smashed up against the window and he's kind of fading out, and you get this feeling he's thinking about what he did with his life, because I think at one point he actually said, what I do with my life, I could have done something, you know, meaningful. Instead I, you know, went for the easy buck. I thought it was kind of lovely.
No, I mean, I think he did fine. I'm just saying that it didn't necessarily need to be Topher Grace. I think he was fine in the role. I think you could have put a number of people, but that's only because of the screenplay.
Look, I mean, he's not the worst actor in this bunch.
Who's the worst actor, David?
I mean, the guy who's on the poster.
Are you kidding? Wahlberg was at next level here. He had Nicolas Cage going, whoa.
Mark, he wasn't on the next level. He was on all levels. Like, he went into the elevator and pressed all the buttons.
I know. I loved it.
I did too. But here's the thing, David. I don't know how much of this was the screenwriter putting this on the page versus Wahlberg looking at whatever he was given and saying, this guy's a generic mob hitman. I can do something with this. Because he turned him into this psychopathic, like bloodthirsty, will hack people to shreds without even thinking about it. But he's also like this pansexual pervert who also knows how to fly planes and has spent most of his life in prison. I mean, he gets so deranged and weird when he's talking about when Topher Grace, hold on a second, I got to pull over and remember this character's name. He is Winston. Okay.
Winston,
Yes, Winston, and not quite Winston the Wolf, but he's asking Daryl, the Wahlberg character, so what was your plan? Are you gonna fly us over into the wilderness and leave us out there for the wolves? And he's like, no, not this time of year. It'd be more like the bears that got you, but not before we had some fun.
Is that after he gave up his Southern accent for the Boston accent?
Yeah.
I feel like I appreciate the fact that he went big and he went like crazy. Sure, this movie kind of needed that, but at the same time, like, I almost feel like there are moments where the other two actors are like, what is happening? like not the characters, but the actors.
Actors are like,
well, I think that's what lends to the verite, because the characters are like, wait a second. First of all, it's crazy that we're in this situation, but also this guy is genuinely crazy. And I like what you talked about, Mark, when Madeline was scuffling with Daryl, because some of that was, you know, real fighting, but also there were extended periods of time where he is handcuffed in the back of this plane and she just goes and starts wailing on him. And again, all hail 40X. Every time she punched him in the face, I couldn't see, maybe you caught it, David, because it was constantly just in my periphery, but it felt like there was a giant inflatable bag that came out from behind my head and gently like knocked me around from both sides. Could she like, boom, this side of the face and boom, that side of the face. I was roughed up, man.
Yeah. I literally at towards the end when the plane's just spinning on the tarmac, I was literally just like,
I saw you, man. You had, I was trying to hold on mostly to my dignity. Didn't matter in that auditorium, but I like your legs and your arms were like, it's like you were on a roller coaster. I was so happy and proud to call you my friend.
Next time I'll probably bring some kind of a strapping device or something.
It's not that kind of a movie, David, but we're, you know, I understand.
Strap device. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
The film is basically Cabin in the Woods in the Air, a Cabin in the Woods film, not the film Cabin in the Woods. It's literally, they didn't want to make another horror film, but this is basically a horror film because you've got your small cast, basically one location. You've got one crazy guy who, like I said, I'm not kidding, has plot armor. He is a slasher. Yeah, he's crazy, but the amount of abuse this guy takes, especially near the end, I'm like sitting here. He gets hit. Spoilers. He gets hit in the shoulder with a flare. He gets stabbed himself. He gets shot 4 times. He gets tossed from the plane, and he has enough gumption to actually get up like he was just about to walk away, and then he gets hit by the truck and gets broken. I loved that bit because I'm sitting here going, I'm like, this is after he has completely broken his thumb and shredded the skin off his hand to pull his hand out of a handcuff.
That was a total Saw moment. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is, if you look at some of the key elements, he at least is like got slasher plot armor type of deal to where he's just taking all kinds of damage and he just keeps coming. And with your small cast and location, it really, I'm like, they didn't want to necessarily make a horror film, but they could have easily made this a horror film.
It would have needed a bigger body count, but I understand
yeah.
your point. Here's like the other thing that's just totally crazy about the plot armor is, I think it's during the initial, tussle in the cockpit, or whatever you want to call it. She tasers him repeatedly in the neck to the point where when he's Marky burn mark. When he's handcuffed in the back, you can see the giant like rectangular burning. I think it's still smoking at some point.
It is smoking.
And he's still fine. I think it was just the desire to get Topher Grace alone in the woods with a bear that kept him going.
Who knows?
Speaking of which, got a few more comments here. Katie says, did the three characters end up eating each other like in Alive? Now, again, I got to reference a conversation we had on Mark's show last night about Anna and the Apocalypse. You have to clarify when you ask three characters ended up eating each other. Would that have been a better film if they had? It depends what kind of film you're talking about. And does any role need to be Topher Grace? Yes.
Yes.
Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 3. That's where I'm setting my hat.
Heretic.
Heretic.
Yeah, he's fine in Heretic.
for the 2 minutes. I mean, his name should have been Red Herring because like he did nothing in that movie.
Yeah.
Although, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's times in this movie where Mark Wahlberg looks like evil Tim Conway or something.
Yeah, he does.
Bald. Like, I mean, if you're gonna do balding, then if you're gonna do shave head instead of a bald cap, then you need to apply some better makeup because you still see the shave mark. You know, it's literally if we took Mark's head, like Mark's head, and put a bunch of fuzzy hair on the sides of it, to give him thicker sides. That's what he looked like.
Yeah.
Unless that was part of his disguise.
I
got to ask something, David. You posted something in our private Facebook message group earlier today. Was that real?
Which part?
The slip cover.
Yes, it's real.
Yep. You're not messing with me. I'm not. I can't take this heartache if you're messing with me.
Oh, you could go check.
Wow. Okay. I'll post I don't know. I'll find a way to do it. I can't do it here right now because I'm old. See, I'm younger than Paul Giamatti. I can't figure this stuff out. But anyway, there's apparently a picture of the slipcase for the home video release of this movie, and Mark Wahlberg, when we first see him in the film and in the trailer, he's got a baseball cap and what looks to be a full head of hair. He looks like Marky Mark, but then of course the cap comes off and you see the bald cap and the Captain Picard kind of like hair around the side. That is the slipcase. I guess the slipcase comes off and with it the baseball cap revealing the balding Marky Mark. And it was so
amazing.
Genius.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I couldn't believe it.
How about the tagline of this movie? Y'all need a pilot? That's the tagline.
Yeah.
I need a drink after this movie. But
I truly, honestly think they didn't necessarily want to make a horror film, but they wanted to come out with something that is a fairly reasonable budgeted film that they can make maybe some money in January before the award season. This is going to hit that 17-day mark on streaming. I mean, if not beforehand, it'll probably hit that 17-day mark on streaming.
Well, it was the #1 movie in America last week.
Yes.
But I think most of that was from probably premium large format theaters because people paid like 3 times the ticket price like us to watch it in 40
Well,
hours.
and the only other competition it had was movies that are already out on streaming that are still in theaters that have been out for a month. So, I mean, it didn't hit
one of these days. One of those days.
I haven't seen it, but I saw the trailer and I'll get around to it one of these days. Not. Sorry. So let me ask, guys, is it cheating to have a movie like this and to add all those bells and whistles for a premium audience to enhance the experience and kind of gloss over the fact that it's not very good? How do we evaluate something like this? Because I think it's a great movie, but only in the context of 4DX. I would never watch this again.
It was a great experience, but a pretty bad movie. You know, so is it cheating? I don't know who's cheating though. You know, I mean,
I don't know.
The studio's got to know that this is going to go to 4DX. The theater's going to make money off of it. So, I mean,
it's definitely one of those films that if there was a way to work it, I mean, it's Lionsgate, but if it was Universal, though Lionsgate and Universal have worked together before, Universal could easily turn Flight Risk into a ride. And from what it sounds like, this film is ride quality. And I don't get me wrong, but I've seen my buddy Doc, who I've known for ages since high school. But he loves Disney and amusement park rides, so he finds all this archival stuff. And there's stuff online like footage from Terminator 3D when they had that ride, and you know, the Back to the Future ride. And I saw the Back to the Future ride too. And if you look at the movie part of it by itself, not really that great. But when you're in the simulator DeLorean, you're flying around and shit's flying at you. You got air and water and everything, you know, that adds to it. This film could easily be good enough to be put in one of those theaters on an amusement ride, Flight Risk, you know, and you'd probably have people get a kick out of it because, as you guys have discovered, you're focused more on your experience than the actual film. Right. Like I said, now when I saw it, when I saw it, I enjoyed the film. So did my older son. I didn't think he would, but he did. You know, it's one that we completely recognize what type of film it is. It's not a great film, but you know, there's some fun moments in here. If you like kind of your cheesy B films, which we do enjoy, it's you know, well made. The only thing that, and it's a mixed bag because the dialogue I think needed a once over, and there was a surprisingly amount of potty humor in this script that surprised the hell. They talked more about people releasing their bowels or pissing their pants or having crap. I mean, literally within the 10 minutes, you have and you can tell it's supposed to kind of be a joke, but it just, none of that humor lands. The humor is unintentional. I called Mark Wahlberg scary, humorously scary, in that, you know, he is scary, but at the same time, he's so on a different world that you can't help but just be amused, even though he's scary. You're like, okay, that's kind of creepy. And then he just does something that you got to laugh your ass off on it.
It's the first hit comedy, or the first big comedy of the year.
Aside from, help me out here, because there's probably a really obvious answer. I'm going to be kicking myself, but aside from like fear, have we seen Mark Wahlberg play this kind of an unhinged Nicolas Cage-esque, I think that was a great comparison, by the way, character before? Because I'm convinced that if this had been Nicolas Cage, I would have just been rolling my eyes. But because it's Mark Wahlberg kind of playing against his type, there was something really interesting here.
It's been a while since, and I appreciate like some of those earlier roles that he took on when he was trying to kind of establish himself, or, you know, smaller roles, maybe antagonists, maybe. I still think his best work is in Scorsese's The Departed, which he got an Oscar nomination for, and was a very supporting character, wasn't big at all. So am I saying he's best in small doses? But I mean, you know, I think it's better to see him. I guess my favorite roles by him are more when he plays more of those based on a true story type of blue collar type, you know, what was that?
Superstar, the 90,
there's that. And then there's that one about the oil drilling.
Deepwater Horizon. Yeah, we talked about that one. There was a Patriots Day, which was really good.
Yeah. So I think he's his range isn't well, he's really trying in this movie, but I think he works best in a certain range, and I think here there's no way that you're going to watch this movie and think, wow, Mark Wahlberg's really disappearing into this role. No, I mean, it's just like, this is like the most he's ever been. It's like, and again, for as flat and dull the screenplay is, I think maybe this movie needed that, but at the same time, it's almost like entirely too distracting too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess because his bigness, his volume makes now I'm thinking of Dirk Diggler, but his volume makes Michelle Dockery's character, the choices she makes,
right,
even more stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like we talked about this, Ian, early on. It's like, she had a gun this whole time. She had an opportunity to just shoot him. Mm-hmm. He was a threat to the plane. He was a threat to the witness. And you mean to tell me that a US Marshal can't figure out how to fly a plane? I mean,
well, I think part of it was because they address this. It's the whole, and to Mark's point about horror movies, this is the whole, oh, we don't have any reception service out here because it's so remote, this cabin in the woods. In this movie, it was, you could shoot me, you've got a gun, and he says this, but a stray bullet can blow up the fuel tanks that are on either side of this plane, so you better be careful.
Shoot him, she didn't miss.
Right, but she doesn't, I think that exchange happens early on in the film.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
they're still kind of in shock by the fact that they're in this situation. So I can see her kind of listening to him, be like, that makes a lot of sense, even though I know you're trying to screw me over.
Well,
yeah, sorry.
Well, then you have her history too. I mean, they do set up that she had she's on eggshells a bit, or on a keen eye under her because of what happened with her previous mission that put her behind the desk. So I'm not saying it was great, but I'm saying that could have held off why she didn't shoot him, even though he is a threat to the mission, because at the same time it could have been used. That's why she was hesitant in the beginning. By the end of it, she didn't give a shit, and she shoots him 4 times, which he still gets up from after rolling out of the plane. Sorry, that whole sequence was just
it was amazing. But
it was amazing.
Look,
it was
Mark,
amazing.
You bring up her backstory, and again, she's great value, Clarice Starling, because there's constant allusions to, oh, well, you're back on the job after being desk bound because of this horrible thing that happened, and it turns out this backstory, this needed another 3rd, 4th, 5th pass, because it doesn't pass. She years ago, there was another witness she was escorting. It was a young lady, was involved in some kind of criminal activity. She was going to testify. She was in a motel room with this lady, and the witness wanted to go take a shower. And so Madeline locks her in the bathroom, and while the lady is in the shower, someone from outside throws a Molotov cocktail into the shower, and the lady burns alive. So many questions. I don't know what's going on there.
And it's not like I would want a flashback or anything like that, but when we get so much subplot from characters that we're only hearing from, she has this FBI, I guess, supervisor or manager,
played by the voice of Leah Remini.
Yeah. And I think her name's Caroline in the movie or whatever. And then Paul Ben Victor plays the
director.
Yeah, the director, who's of course becomes the antagonist. And it's like, okay, so we have actually 3 voices that we hear. We hear
Hassan.
We hear Hassan.
I love Hassan. Hassan is my favorite character.
I didn't understand how see, to me, Hassan has a totally different level. You got Wahlberg going big over here, And then like you got Topher Grace and Dockery trying to do something. And then Hassan's over here like, hey, I really like your voice. We'll go out for drinks later. It's like, what?
I love it. I loved it.
Mark, you mentioned AI earlier.
Yes.
And I was convinced that Hassan was like, because they brought in Madeline doesn't know how to fly a plane, so her contact at the agency gets someone on the phone who does know how to fly a plane, but he sounds like AI mixed with a customer service call center guy mixed with a Lothario, because as you mentioned, David, he's like, just look at these instruments. It's the big green dial on the left, and that's fine. And when you land, I'm going to be there. We're going to go out for drinks. I'm like, what is this? And she eventually starts kind of falling for Hassan. And what's really interesting, looking up the cast on IMDb, you see who all were the voices of these people, but you've got two actors who look almost identical. One is playing Hassan because we see him for 2 seconds at the end, and the other is Hassan voice. I'm like, what? I don't know it. I don't understand anything about this film.
Maybe that guy had like a really I don't know, wimpy voice or something. Kind of like
it was like a Darth Vader situation.
Ray Park voice.
Yeah, there you go. Or Darth Maul, one of the Darths.
There you go.
Yes, I just feel like it was hard to really like stay invested or stay in the intensity of it all when this guy's like really just flirting with her, and I get what he's trying to do is just like calm her and everything, but like this is just weird. It's like and it
But the whole film is weird. Maybe that's why it appeals to me, because I just love weird films. It is a weird film. I fully acknowledge all of its warts and that it's a weird film. I had fun with it. And then I love the ending, as we called it. We get Agent 47. We get like the end. We get the crash. We get, oh, hey, they're going to save, we'll just call him Topher Grace, Winston. They're going to save him. All right. We've got the music, and she's like, yeah, we need to do this. She sees Hassan, and then all of a sudden she sees the most obvious, not EMT yet assassin with the bald head. That's why I call him Agent 47, like Hitman. So he comes in, and she watches him go all the way into the ambulance first, and then she's like, huh. And then she goes in there, and he's literally choking.
Got the bag over his head.
With a bag over his head. So she shoots him, and she goes into the ambulance, and the director, who's crooked, happens to be on the line at the time that this guy is
spilling the beans. Like, did you kill the witness yet? Is the witness dead?
Just blatantly, did you kill the witness yet? And she's like, no, you're done. And she's holding him. And then you get that wonderful final shot to where I'm just like, this film with this final shot, I'm just like, okay, this film is ridiculous. And they just were throwing something together to put out there, I swear, because you have all the guys look into the ambulance.
Right.
And then we cut to credits. We don't even get some additional coda like her at a table with
Ian had a great idea about that. They should have all pulled guns on them.
Should have all pulled guns at that point.
That's what it looked like. They were all like this conspicuous lineup of like EMTs and firefighters. Like they appear in framed by the opening ambulance doors. I was waiting for them to do like a Pulp Fiction and just like raise up and start shooting, and then you cut to black. Perfect ending.
One of my favorite moments though is an actress who, I mean, she's just an extra who's playing an EMT, but she comes in and she has the best reaction because they're like,
oh, I love that line.
It's the best line in the whole film because they sit there and they're like, they've got the one passenger and they're like, okay, then the lady goes, oh, I'm sorry to say the other passenger fell from the plane and was hit by an EMT truck. And Madeline goes, oh, good.
Oh,
and
good.
She has the best reaction because she doesn't say anything, but she gets this look on her face like,
she's like, what the
fuck? Best.
I did a double shift for this. Yeah.
One of the best moments in it. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. That's the thing is the trailer gives you what type of film you're going into really. And you look at the presence, the premise of this film, even if you read the synopsis, I mean, it's just like, oh, okay. You know, it's just it's wild they released this to they out of all the bank of like movies and stuff that they have made, they chose to put this out in theaters because they could have gone to
40X.
streaming easy.
Well, and that's when I got. That's why I asked the question earlier about cheating. And I don't know. I have not done any research into this because I'm a professional film critic. But you see movies that are filmed for IMAX, filmed using IMAX cameras.
Right.
It's meant to be in that format. Whereas there's some movies that like, oh, we just put up on IMAX or whatever, and it looks kind of bad. In this case, I don't know if this movie was meant to, it was created with 4DX in mind, or if someone at Lionsgate saw the final film, they're like, this is already in the theatrical schedule, like you're saying, Mark. We need all the help we can get. Can we 4DX this up? And then it goes through a whole process because it's not like I feel like you can watch this movie and not have any kind of 4DX experience. Like when you're watching a movie that's a 3D film and you see like in Friday the 13th Part 3, the yo-yo comes out at you, or, you know, all the machete or whatever. That's the gimmick. They know what they're making. In this case, I feel like they had this kind of crappy movie and like, okay, what can we do with this? All right, well, when she's punching in the face, we have the airbags come out, or, you know, all the turbulence, we can rock the seats and have the platforms come up, kind of retroactively making it exciting. And that's why I'm finding it hard to judge this movie on its merits. I wish I could separate myself to go watch it, you know, do an A/B test, but I can't.
You probably would have really disliked.
I had that thought numerous times watching this movie. I'm like, I'm glad I'm watching it this way because otherwise I'm kind of bored.
I had more fun turning to my left and seeing Ian like slinking down into his seat, laughing hysterically while we were being shook around, shaken by the movie. And I'm like, all right, well, this is worth the upcharge, you know, right there.
And that's awesome that you got to have that experience. You know, and for me, I like a cheesy, campy film every so often, especially, and to see it in the big screen and see Mel Gibson's name tied to this is just it adds my enjoyment and humor to this film, because I'm like, what did he need, like pay taxes or something?
Right. Well, he's had this weird trajectory ever since that you know, other film that he was in, the police body cam. But he's been kind of like on the outs with Hollywood and kind of making you know, fits and starts. This is something Dave and I were talking about after the film. I recognized the name of the cinematographer, but I couldn't place it. And David, you were the one who mentioned that it was wait a second. Hold on a second. I got the wrong page. It's Johnny Durango, the best name in Hollywood, Johnny Durango. He shot a number of the films that the Nelms brothers made. He was their cinematographer. He shot Fat Man, which starred Mel Gibson as Santa Claus, an amazing film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. So there's that kind of connection to this. So it's weird because you've got this mix of talent coming together to make this movie. I don't quite understand it, but I'm glad that they made it and I got to see it. I'd be
really curious to know like what his approach was to this movie, because I'm pretty sure from an interview that I saw that I'm pretty sure that this is filmed in something similar to the volume, if not the volume, which makes sense. So, you know, how does a cinematographer, you know, use that as a tool? That's a curious thing to me. You know, when you're sitting there watching a movie and you're wondering like these things while watching it, that shows you like how great the movie is. But yeah, I think people who are like, I know folks who will see like Wahlberg in just about anything. And they're like, man, any action thing or, you know, whatever. And I'd be very curious to see what they think about this. Cause like, man, I don't know about that. What the heck was going on there? You know, what was he doing?
Because he's a real villain in this movie, and it's not something I feel like it's kind of like I place Wahlberg in about the same category as Tom Cruise. Like he's a movie star who also has acting chops, but he's not necessarily called upon to use them in everything that he does.
They both now have played bald or balding characters. Tropic Thunder with Tom Cruise.
True.
There you go.
Although that was not supposed to be funny.
It was.
Les Grossman. All right, we're gonna pull over here for the last batch of comments. All from DN. This is the first I've heard of 4DX. Can't imagine experiencing boogie nights on 4DX. Oh, I would. At least
slap that final shot at the end when zip slap.
Oh wow.
Entire theater shakes. Oh my gosh.
That would make it worth it alone. There's absolutely no other 4DX effect ever throughout the whole film to the very last shot when he unzips his fly and all of a sudden
4 kicks.
Oh, no. Oh no! Can you imagine the scene where Roller Girl stomps that guy's face in with her skates? Oh man! Wahlberg's Father Stew was more Nick Cage. I didn't see Father Stew, but I always thought that name sounded like a cannibal movie. Yeah. Tonally, Hacksaw felt like a Hallmark Channel Christian movie than any other Mel Gibson movie apart from his directing debut.
Wow.
Directing debut. You're talking about The Man Without a Face?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen that. Was Nick Stahl, man.
Yeah, it was.
I haven't seen that in a long time. It's like over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I've
never seen a Hallmark movie that R-rated, but okay.
Yeah, that graphic. I mean, the thing is, it was a Christian movie because it was very much about a man and his faith, but it also happened to be very graphically violent and based on a true story and all that stuff. That's one of the reasons I thought it was a really cool movie. I like that kind of juxtaposition. You don't always see that.
Right.
Braveheart, The Passion, Apocalypto cast such a shadow that any deviation from that thread is a seismic shift. And I think that's why we're all kind of talking about how surprised we are that Mel Gibson made this movie. I can't even put it in that same league. I feel like this is sort of like Gibson maybe entering his Coen Brothers phase, where you say, oh, the Coen Brothers, they did No Country for Old Men. But they also did Raising Arizona. They're looking at their filmography. You can't quite categorize them, except that the movies are all kind of offbeat in some way, even the dark ones.
And I don't mind when a director tries something different. It's not always going to hit, and obviously this one isn't going to hit with a lot of people, though it is ridiculous
because they didn't see it in 4DX, Mark.
Because they didn't see it in 4DX.
It's going to hit with 100% of people who see it in that format.
It's a ridiculous thriller that would have been more fitting late 90s, early 2000s. You could definitely see this fitting into that, and maybe the script has been sitting around in development hell for who knows how long, but it's one of those films where if you dislike it, I totally get why. If you don't have the 4DX and you enjoy it, like my son and I enjoyed it well enough, we felt like we had a good time. It's not one that I'm going to revisit or anything, but we had a good time, but I like seeing actors like Mark Wahlberg try something different, even if it's not great. It's still fun to see them try because look at George Clooney. Don't get me wrong. I like George Clooney. He's very charismatic. I like George Clooney plays George Clooney. He knows he plays George Clooney. There's always a variation of George Clooney. There's very few roles that I know that I've watched him in to where I'm like, that's the character. I'm like, no, just name him George because he's George Clooney. You know what I mean? But he does it well. That's not a slam on him. The roles he takes, they're very fitting. But it is fun to see an actor, even if it's not, great, see them try something different at least, even if it means they got to go back to to their normal tropes, that's fine. But it's just, and that's part of why I enjoyed this, is just because I'm just smiling going, damn, Mark, you really wanted to just try something different. I'm like, you're not really a character actor, but good on you for trying, because I am amused highly by this really scummy guy.
Sorry, go ahead.
That was pretty amusing. Go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing that would have made this perfect is if, because the whole thing with Winston was, he loved his mother and he was didn't want to disappoint her, and also her house was in a file that I guess Wahlberg had of, kind of his case mission, like a target. So he knew that his mom was in danger. I was just hoping that at some point Wahlberg was going to get horribly killed, but his last words to Winston would have been, "Say hi to your mom for me," and then splat. Perfect. Anyway, I think we're gonna end this on this perfectly awkward note.
Perfectly awkward.
And and thank everybody who hung out, even if there was some bloody noses in the chat. This was great. But appreciate everybody spending their Tuesday evening with us, a different time, a different day, or actually different day, same time. It's been fun talking about flight risk 4DX with my esteemed friends and colleagues, David Fowley of Keeping It Real and Mark the Movie Man Krawczyk of Special Mark Productions in the Spoiler Room, and I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. And next week I've decided, I don't know when we're going to talk about it, maybe Wednesday, but I got to work it out. I'm going to talk about The Brutalist.
Oh,
huh? No, not Dogman. I've heard good things. I've heard
really good things. Yeah,
it
won't come out for a while yet around for us regular folk. But
so you're choosing The Brutalist over Emilia Perez? Okay.
Look, one is on Netflix, and the other, from what I understand, is watchable. Anyhow, so yeah, I think we're going to talk about The Brutalist next week. Time and place to be determined. I'm psyching myself out for spending 3.5+ hours in a movie theater, and we'll see. I'll load up on some coffee. Thank you. I hope you all will join us back here next week for that. And be sure and support all of Earth's Mightiest Critics. All of our information is down below. And any final, I guess, thoughts on Flight Risk, or have we said it all, gang?
I mean, it is what it is. That's the thing, is the trailer is the movie. That's what you're getting. There's no real surprises. We've seen this film before. But if you need a break from a lot of things, this film can give you that break, because it's so ridiculous. It is so Wahlberg's so over the top. It's so by the numbers. I mean, come on. Why does every FBI director have to be the crooked one? Why couldn't it have been her friend? By the numbers, but at the same time, this is like,
that's right.
This is like cinema comfort food. You know what you're getting. It's going to be enough to where you can watch it once and probably enjoy it. But it's not a great film by any means. I will fully admit. But
who's probably happy about this being number one over the weekend besides Lionsgate is President Trump, because he recently named Mel Gibson, Sylvester
as his ambassador,
and John Voight as ambassadors of what?
Hollywood to Hollywood. I don't
know. They're supposed to make Hollywood great again. Save Hollywood.
Well, and I think, honestly, Flight Risk 4DX is the first salvo in that mission. You might even say mission accomplished, to take it back 20 years. You're right, Mark. I think this is a great bit of escapism. But as far as comfort food, I feel like watching this in non-4DX, and I promise I'm not getting paid to pimp out this format. It's just, I just love it. I want to see every movie. I want to see The Brutalist in 4DX. I can only imagine. But but seeing this movie,
Baby Girl in 4DX.
Oh yeah, the plastic bags will be coming out more like around the buttocks area, I think. Anyhow, seeing that movie non-4DX, that's like eating too much comfort food. I feel like seeing it in 4DX is comfort food, but you're going to get it spilled all over you because you don't sit still for the entire time. Hold on a second.
One more.
Two more. Respect to Sajiwa, though, but I'm going to any Joel Haver type movies. I need them to be more polished, like from that director who made that movie on that guy binging on soda in his apartment. Or Todd Salons. All right. Well, fair enough.
You better end it now before it gets bloody in the chat again.
Well, I'm just going to say respect to DN for that respectful last comment. I feel like you got in a dig, although I don't quite understand the full context because I've not seen any Joel Haver movies yet. I am on tap to see some, but yeah, I like that we're ending things civilly, unlike Flight Risk, which ended, bloody runway crash and Wahlberg splattered
How
by
else
an
could it
ambulance.
have ended? Come on now.
Here's the thing. I know we're wrapping up, but that I thought for sure that they were going to do a twist in the middle of the movie where the plane actually does crash and they have to chase each other through like the Alaskan woods or something like that. That would have been kind of fun. Then you have Liam Neeson show up with the shards in his knuckles.
In the gray.
With the wolves behind him because now he's king of the wolves and he's like,
There you go. There you go. All right. Anyway, we're going to end this. Everybody, thank you so much again. Yes. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thanks very much and take care. I mean it.